Hi everyone, this is my story. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to do something unforgivable. The kind of woman who'd destroy the person who loved her the most. But here I am, typing this, knowing that every single thing that happened was my fault, and that I deserve every bit of the fallout that came after. If I could take it all back, I would. God, I would. But life doesn't give you an undo button. It only gives you memories to haunt you and silence to live with. My name doesn't matter, but for the sake of this story, call me Emily. My husband, the man I betrayed, we'll call him Ryan. We met in college. He was my first real love. Smart, kind, grounded. The kind of guy who never raised his voice, never played games, never gave me a reason to doubt him. We got married right after graduation, and for years, we were happy. Like, genuinely happy. Until we weren't. I can't even pinpoint when things started to change. Maybe it wasn't even him. Maybe it was me. I turned 30 last year, and something in me just cracked. Ryan was working long hours, and even though we lived together, I started to feel like we were roommates. We'd still laugh, we'd still make dinner together, but intimacy became routine, something predictable. He was the same man I'd fallen in love with, but somewhere along the way, I started craving something else. Something thrilling. Something that made me feel alive again. That something turned out to be Ethan, one of Ryan's closest friends. He was the funny one in the group, charming, confident, always knew how to make people laugh. He was married, too, to Sophie, who I used to grab coffee with sometimes. Our friend group had always done camping trips together, weekend getaways, movie nights. So when things started between Ethan and me, it didn't feel like a new relationship. It felt like something that had been quietly building for a while. It started small. Harmless flirting. Playful teasing when our spouses weren't looking. Then one night, a few of us went out drinking. Ryan had left early because he had work the next morning. Ethan and I stayed. One too many drinks later, we ended up outside, alone, under the kind of dim bar light that makes everything feel like a secret. He leaned in to hug me goodbye, and before I even realized it, I was kissing him. It wasn't planned.
It wasn't romantic.
It was wrong. But it was like flipping a switch, one that I hadn't even realized existed inside me. When I got home that night, I stood in the shower for almost an hour, crying. I told myself it was just a stupid mistake. That it meant nothing. That it would never happen again. But the next morning he texted me. Can't stop thinking about last night. I should have ignored it. I should have blocked him, confessed to my husband, done literally anything else. But I didn't. I replied. That's how it started. The weeks after that were a blur. At first, it was just texting. Inside jokes, flirty comments, then late-night conversations. We downloaded Telegram because it was more private. I didn't even realize how much that secrecy excited me. It made me feel desired again. Like someone saw me, not as a wife, not as someone's other half, but as a woman. That's the part that kills me the most now. Ryan always saw me. He just loved me quietly, not with grand gestures or dramatic words, but with loyalty and consistency. But I was too blind to see the value in that. The affair escalated quickly. We started meeting for coffee during lunch breaks, then hotel rooms. He'd tell his wife he was on a work call. I'd tell Ryan I was at the gym. Every lie chipped a little piece off me, but every time I saw Ethan, I ignored the guilt. He told me I made him feel alive. He said I was special, that we were soulmates stuck in the wrong lives. Those words became my drug. I started believing them. 8 months. That's how long it went on. 8 months of sneaking around, pretending, lying, smiling at my husband while texting another man under the dinner table. Ryan never suspected a thing. Not once. He trusted me more than I deserved. There were moments, though, flashes of conscience that made me want to come clean. Like when Ryan surprised me with flowers for no reason. Or when we visited his parents' graves together. He lost them in a car crash 2 years ago, and I saw how broken he still was. He cried that day, holding my hand, saying, "You're all I have left now." And I remember thinking, then why am I doing this to him? But guilt is a strange thing. It doesn't always stop you. Sometimes it just makes you hide better. The weekend that changed everything was the camping trip. 3 couples, me and Ryan, Ethan and his wife Sophie, and our other friends, Jake and Lauren. I remember that morning vividly. We were packing up, everyone laughing, the sun filtering through the trees. I bent down to grab something, and Ethan brushed his hand over my hip. Too familiar, too intimate. For a split second, I smiled back at him. It was instinctive, automatic. But when I looked up, I saw Ryan staring at us from a distance. He didn't say anything. He just looked frozen. My stomach dropped. The rest of the drive home, he barely spoke. He said he was just tired, but I could tell something was off. I tried to act normal, force small talk, but my heart was pounding the entire time. Did he see something? Did he suspect? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that second in my head, the touch, my smile, his eyes. I felt sick. I messaged Ethan, panicking. He told me to relax, that Ryan probably didn't notice, that I was overthinking. But I knew better. Ryan wasn't the type to make a scene. If he saw something, he'd bury it deep, analyze it, replay it until he knew the truth.
And that terrified me. Still, I didn't stop.
Even after that. That's what makes me the worst kind of person. I knew the risk, and I still didn't stop. A week later, things between Ethan and me started getting more reckless. We began talking about the future, about leaving our spouses and being together for real. I don't even know if either of us meant it. Maybe it was just fantasy talk, the kind of thing you say to keep the illusion alive. He told me he'd never felt this way before. That he'd leave Sophie if I left Ryan. We even joked about what kind of apartment we'd get, where we'd live, how we'd make it work. But deep down, I knew it was bullshit. Neither of us had the guts to actually destroy our lives. We just wanted the thrill of pretending we would. Still, I was in too deep to pull away. I even sent him photos, things I'd be humiliated for if anyone ever saw them. And one night, I came home from the gym, kissed Ryan like nothing happened, and told him I missed him. He smiled,
Told me he loved me.
said I was glowing lately. And that moment, that sweet, trusting smile, was the exact second my heart broke for the first time. Not because I was caught, but because I realized I'd already lost him. He just didn't know it yet. Things were falling apart faster than I realized. Ethan started getting distant, moody. He'd cancel on me last minute, blame work, act irritable if I got emotional. I could feel the shift. I didn't want to admit it, but it scared me. I started checking his tone in messages, reading between lines that weren't there. He still told me he loved me, but the words felt empty. I started to feel desperate, the kind of desperation that makes you text too much, call too often, and then hate yourself afterward. Around that time, Ryan became quieter, more withdrawn. He stopped initiating conversations, stopped joking like he used to. But he didn't accuse me. He didn't fight. He just watched me. I told myself it was my guilt making me paranoid, but every time his eyes lingered on me for a second too long, I felt like he could see right through me. And then one day, I noticed something. My iPad, the one I hadn't used in months, was gone from the drawer. I didn't think much of it at first. I thought maybe I'd misplaced it. But that night, Ryan locked himself in his office, saying he had to catch up on work. He didn't come to bed until after midnight. That's when it hit me, like ice water down my spine. He knew, or at least he was finding out. That night, I couldn't sleep. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. I messaged Ethan in full panic. He told me to stay calm. Said Ryan was probably just busy, that I was imagining things. But I wasn't. Somewhere deep down, I knew it was over. When you've lied long enough, you can feel when the truth starts closing in. And I could feel it now. Heavy, suffocating, inevitable. That's the night I stopped being able to breathe easily. The night the walls I built around my lies started to crack. And I didn't even know it yet, but my entire life was about to burn down. The next few days after that sleepless night were pure agony. Ryan was quieter than usual, colder, but in that polite, calculated way that made it even worse.
He didn't yell.
He didn't accuse. He just observed, like a detective piecing together evidence, silently, while pretending everything was normal. He kissed me goodbye in the mornings. He asked about dinner plans. But his eyes, they were different.
Detached.
It was like he was already gone, but his body was still here. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. I wanted so badly to believe that maybe he hadn't found out. That maybe the iPad was still somewhere in the house, that he was really just working late, that the tension I felt was only guilt eating me alive. But deep down I knew. Because guilt doesn't stare at you across the table with eyes that cold. One evening, after he said he'd be in his office working, I stood outside the door and listened. I couldn't hear typing. Just silence. My heart pounded as I tried to steady my breathing. I wanted to knock, ask if everything was okay, maybe joke about how much work he'd been doing lately. But I couldn't. Something about that silence was louder than any scream. So I walked away, poured myself a glass of wine I didn't even taste, and sat there, waiting for him to come out. When he finally did, hours later, his face was expressionless. He looked at me, smiled faintly, and said, "You're up late." I tried to match his tone. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." He nodded. "Yeah, I know the feeling." Then he kissed my forehead, a kiss that felt like goodbye, and went to bed. That night, I barely closed my eyes. I kept thinking he knows. He knows everything. Every photo, every text, every filthy message I'd sent Ethan. All of it. My stomach twisted thinking about him reading them. The person who once called me his best friend, now scrolling through my betrayal in full color. When morning came, I watched him get ready for work. He didn't say much. He poured his coffee, checked his phone, and left without looking back. The second the door closed, I broke down. I sat on the kitchen floor sobbing like a child, whispering, I'm sorry, please don't hate me," to a man who wasn't even there to hear it. Later that day, Ethan messaged me. "We might need to cool things down for a while." My heart dropped. I asked him what he meant. He said he thought Sophie, his wife, was starting to get suspicious. I felt dizzy. Everything was spinning. Ryan knew. Sophie might know. Ethan wanted to cool things down. And I was standing in the middle of a storm I'd created, pretending I could still keep it all together. I asked him, "You're not thinking about ending this, are you?" He said, "No, just we need to be careful. For now." That "for now" became the most terrifying 2 words I'd ever read. Because deep down, I knew what it really meant. He was already halfway gone. A few days later, Ryan said he had to meet someone, some work thing he claimed. But I knew that tone. That cold, factual tone. It wasn't work.
He was doing something.
I tried to follow him once, but my hands shook so badly, I couldn't even grab my keys. That night, when he got home, he didn't greet me like he usually did. He sat on the couch, looked at me for a long moment, and said, "We need to talk." I froze. "Okay," I said quietly, forcing a smile. "What about?"
"Just sit," he said.
The way he said it, calm but commanding, made my knees weak. I sat down across from him, my palms sweating, my heart hammering so loudly I could hear it echoing in my ears. He looked straight at me and said, "Before I ask you anything, promise me you'll be honest." My throat tightened. "Of course," I whispered. "Baby, what's going on?" He took a deep breath. "Do you love me?" The question hit like a punch. "Yes, of course." "Are you happy with me?" "Yes," I said again instantly. "Have I been good to you?" My voice cracked. "Yes." "Have I ever hurt you physically or emotionally?"
"No."
"Never." He nodded slowly, then looked me dead in the eyes. "Then why are you cheating on me?" The world stopped. I don't even remember what my first words were. I think I just stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to say it was some kind of test. But he didn't. He just sat there, watching me unravel. I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Don't insult me." That's when I started crying. Denial. Begging. Lying. All in one breath. I swore nothing happened. I said maybe he misread something. That it was just harmless flirting. Then, in full panic, I admitted to kissing someone once.
Some random guy at a bar.
A stupid drunk mistake. He laughed, a short, broken laugh that still echoes in my head. It wasn't the kind of laugh that meant humor. It was the kind that meant he was done. He stood up, looked at me, and said, "I filed for divorce." I gasped. "What?" He pulled a business card from his pocket and dropped it on the coffee table. "If you need to reach me, call my lawyer." I couldn't breathe. I begged, cried, clung to his arm, saying I was sorry, saying it was just a phase, that I loved him, that we could fix this. He didn't yell. He didn't even look angry. He just said, "You were all I had left." Then he started packing a bag. That's when I lost it. I screamed, threw things, told him he couldn't leave me, told him he was overreacting. And then, I said the worst thing I could have ever said. "You have no one else, Ryan. Why would you throw away the only family you have left?" The second it came out, I knew I'd gone too far. Because that was exactly what he had told me after his parents died. And I'd just weaponized his pain against him. He stopped packing, looked at me like I was a stranger, then zipped up his suitcase and walked out the door. That was the last time I saw him as my husband. For the next few days, I tried calling him, nothing. Texting, nothing. Then Sophie called. At first, I thought maybe Ryan had told her. But when I answered, she was sobbing. "How could you?" she cried. "How could you do this to us?" My stomach dropped. Ryan hadn't told her, her husband had. Or rather, Ryan had shown her the messages himself. She knew everything. Every photo. Every word. Every lie. I didn't even try to deny it. I just sat there, numb, listening to her cry until she hung up. After that, everything fell apart like dominoes. Ethan's wife threw him out. Our friend group found out. Messages spread. People cut me off quietly, some with silence, some with disgust. And my Ryan moved out. He didn't come back for anything except his clothes and a few papers. He didn't even look at me. I found out later he was staying at a hotel. Alone. The next week, he had me served the divorce papers. And just like that, my marriage, my entire life, was gone. A few nights later, I messaged Ethan. He didn't respond. When he finally did, he said, "We need space. This is too much." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him if he understood what I'd just lost for him. But I didn't. I just stared at my phone, realizing that I'd burned down my life for a man who was already walking away. I reached out to my sister, told her everything. She was furious, but tried to comfort me. She said I needed to see a lawyer. I did, and that's when I learned I wasn't entitled to Ryan's inheritance. Not a cent. That's when I realized how stupid I'd been. I destroyed the one man who loved me, for someone who couldn't even stay when things got hard. Then one evening, Ethan came over. I don't even know how it happened. Maybe out of pity. Maybe out of guilt. He said he missed me, that he was confused, that he needed to see me. He spent the night. Then another. And then nothing. He ghosted me completely. Meanwhile, Sophie, his wife, started filing for divorce too. And Ryan? He cut off everyone who reminded him of me. Our mutual friends told me he was doing okay, that he'd started therapy, that he was going to the gym. They said he looked strong. Colder, but strong. And me? I was just a shadow. Sitting in a house full of memories I couldn't escape from, replaying every lie, every kiss, every second that led me here. I don't know what I expected. Forgiveness? A second chance? All I know is, when you betray someone who loves you unconditionally, you don't just lose them. You lose yourself too. And when Ryan walked out that night, he didn't just leave me. He took every version of myself I'd ever liked and left me with the one I hate the most. After Ryan left, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a museum of everything I destroyed. The couch where we used to fall asleep watching Netflix, the kitchen where he'd dance with me for no reason, the framed photo of us on our wedding day that I couldn't bring myself to take down. The silence was unbearable. It wasn't peaceful silence. It was heavy, suffocating, the kind that screamed at you. I'd wake up in the middle of the night expecting to hear his breathing beside me, only to remember he was gone. Every morning, I'd stare at his empty side of the bed, hoping that maybe it was all a nightmare. It wasn't. He really left. And I had no one to blame but myself. For the first week, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I'd sit on the floor with my phone in my hand, refreshing his messages, hoping for something, anything. But there was nothing. No calls. No texts. No, we need to talk. It was like I had ceased to exist for him. And honestly, I couldn't blame him. He had every right to erase me. Ethan, on the other hand, vanished too. After the last time he came over, I didn't hear from him again. I'd text, call, even drive by his place once. Pathetic, I know, but he never answered. The truth hit me slowly, painfully.
He didn't love me.
He never did. I was just his escape, his thrill, his what if. And when the fun stopped, he went back to living his real life, or at least what was left of it after his wife kicked him out. It took me days to realize that the affair that once felt like passion was actually just destruction wrapped in adrenaline. Sophie, his wife, didn't talk to me again. But one night, she sent me a single message. You and he deserve each other. I hope you both rot. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it, not because I didn't deserve it, but because she was right. Our mutual friends drifted away too. Someone followed me. Others stopped answering my calls. Word got around fast, it always does. And just like that, I became that woman. The one who blew up 2 marriages, 2 lives, and an entire friend circle. I found out later that Ryan and Sophie had met up after he told her everything. He'd shown her the screenshots, the photos, the messages. He'd even told her about the weekend trip Ethan and I took, the one where I lied and said I was at my sister's. I didn't know until then that he knew everything. He'd found the hotel receipts, the texts, the plans we made. He even knew that Ethan had paid for the trip. And still, he never yelled, never exposed me online, never humiliated me. He just quietly packed up, filed for divorce, and walked away. That's the thing about Ryan. His silence hurts more than any scream ever could. A week after being served, I went to see a lawyer. I sat in her office, trembling, hoping she'd tell me there was some way to fix things, legally, emotionally, financially. She didn't. She explained everything bluntly. The condo was co-owned by both of our families. My lawyer said we'd either have to sell or buy each other out. And his inheritance? Completely off limits. When I heard that, something inside me cracked again. Not because I wanted his money, but because that inheritance represented everything he'd ever loved. His parents, his security,
His future.
and realizing I'd lost that too, the trust that came with it, felt like losing him all over again. That night, I broke down harder than I ever had before. I called my sister, sobbing, telling her everything, how stupid I'd been, how I ruined the only man who ever truly loved me. She was furious. Not because I cheated, but because she'd watched Ryan treat me like gold for years. She couldn't understand how I could throw that away. Neither could I. She said something that stuck with me. You wanted excitement. Well, you got it. Just not the kind you imagined. She was right. The affair had been a high, and now I was living in the crash. A few days later, I saw Ryan by accident. I was driving downtown when I spotted him coming out of a cafe. He looked different. Leaner. Sharper. Dressed better than I'd ever seen him. For a second, I almost pulled over. Almost ran up to him, apologized, begged. But I didn't. Because the way he carried himself told me everything I needed to know. He was healing. Without me. And I had no right to interrupt that. I tried to focus on fixing my own life. I got therapy. I started journaling. But every session, every page, came back to the same truth. I'd cheated because I was bored. Because I wanted validation. Because I thought I deserved more excitement. As if loyalty and kindness weren't exciting enough. My therapist said something I'll never forget. You were chasing a feeling you once had, not realizing you already had the person who made you feel it in the first place. She was right. I had the best man I could have asked for. And I destroyed him because I mistook comfort for complacency. About 2 weeks later, I got a message from Ryan. It wasn't what I hoped for. He didn't say he missed me. He didn't ask how I was. He just said, "Please stop contacting my lawyer directly. Everything will go through them now. Take care." Those 2 words, take care, hit harder than any insult. It was closure disguised as courtesy. That's when I realized he was gone for good. I kept trying to distract myself.
Work, gym,
Podcasts. Anything to fill the silence. But nights were the hardest. That's when my mind replayed everything. The first time Ethan kissed me, the first lie I told Ryan, the first morning I came home from sleeping with someone else and kissed my husband like nothing happened. It made me sick. There were nights I'd drink too much just to fall asleep, and mornings I'd stare in the mirror wondering who the hell I'd become. Because the woman looking back at me wasn't the one Ryan married. She wasn't warm or kind or loyal. She was hollow. Then, about a month later, Ethan texted me again.
Hey.
You doing okay? I stared at it for 10 minutes before replying. Why do you care? He said he just wanted to check in, that he'd been thinking about me. I almost laughed. The same man who disappeared when everything collapsed suddenly remembered I existed. He said he missed me, that we could still figure things out. For a second, just one, I considered it. Then I remembered the way Ryan looked at me when he said, "You were all I had left." And I blocked Ethan's number. Because for once, I didn't want to run from the pain. I wanted to live with it. Feel it. Learn from it. Months have passed now. The divorce isn't finalized yet, but it's happening. I haven't seen Ryan since that day outside the cafe. Mutual friends say he's doing well, that he's going to therapy, hitting the gym, taking care of himself. And I'm genuinely happy for him. Because he deserves peace. He deserves someone who'll never make him question his worth again. As for me, I'm still figuring things out. I go to work. I go home. I cook for one now. I read. I write. And every now and then, I find myself scrolling through old photos, not to torture myself, but to remind me that I once had something beautiful. Something I should have protected instead of destroyed. People ask if I regret cheating. Of course I do. But regret doesn't even cover it. Regret is what you feel when you forget an anniversary or say something hurtful in a fight. This is deeper. This is grief. Because cheating isn't just betrayal, it's murder. You kill the trust, the friendship, the love that once held two people together. And when you realize what you've done, it's already too late to save it. Sometimes I still imagine what I'd say if Ryan ever let me talk to him again. I wouldn't ask for forgiveness. I wouldn't beg for another chance. I'd just say thank you. Thank you for loving me when I didn't deserve it. Thank you for being gentle when you could have been cruel. And thank you for walking away, because it's the only thing that forced me to finally see who I'd become. The truth is, I'll never stop missing him. Not in the romantic sense, but in that ache you feel when you know you broke something good and pure. He'll move on one day. Maybe he already has. He'll find someone new, someone kind, someone who won't need chaos to feel alive. And when that happens, I'll smile for him, even if it hurts. Because loving someone also means wanting them to find happiness, even if it's not with you. If you're reading this and you're tempted to cheat, don't. Don't mistake excitement for love. Don't throw away the person who would walk through fire for you just because someone else makes your heart race for a few minutes. Because once you lose them, no amount of regret will ever bring them back. It's been months since Ryan left. I've stopped waiting for his messages. I've stopped expecting closure. Now, I just live with the silence, not as punishment but as a reminder. A reminder of what love looks like when you forget to value it. And maybe someday I'll find peace. But I know one thing for sure. I'll never find another Ryan. Because you only get one person who truly loves you without conditions. And I let mine walk away.